Hello, and thank you for listening to Street Soldiers Radio. This episode is brought to you by Comerica Bank as another way of raising expectations in the communities we serve.
Tell me what you see when you look at me. Do you see another brother lost in these streets looking for his soul?
Trying to find my soul.
Or do you see another brother searching for lost souls in these streets? A street soldier.
Street soldier.
Alrighty. Let's plunge into Financially Alive and Free. You see our guests, and we are here to kick off a Comerica Bank Money Sense financial education discussion right here on Street Soldiers Radio. Joining us are staff members and young people, alumni and current students at Alive and Free to talk about their impressions and the impact that Financially Alive and Free has had on them. I'm looking for one and he's not here. I'm trying to say, where is he? I don't like it when I send people things and they don't show up. So while I start talking, I'm gonna look for him. He says, should I call in? I sent you Zoom link coming in. So I'm gonna be searching him as we begin the conversation. But joining us is, and they can wave their hand. Yeah, first of all, of course, you saw the Emmy Award winning Mr. Mitra Jones. Emmy Award winning, and if you don't know what that is, we'll tell you again. But she has it at the top of her resume. I will have it at the top of her introduction. Who actually was the teacher in that video, and teaches the Financially Alive and Free class. Next to, we have, at least on my screen, we have Mr. Don Strand, who I haven't seen for a minute. Don, what's up? Don Strand, wave your hand, sir. Who is very instrumental. I'm going to come to him right away because if I'm correct, I think he's the one that started thinking about this Financially Alive and Free thing in the first place. How it was created. Then we have, let's see, Miss Dayrell Marquez Perez. There she is, an alumni, graduate of the University of California, Berkeley. Who went through the Alive and Free, Financially Alive and Free class, and who now co-teaches. Can I call her co-teacher, Mr. Mitra? Financially Alive and Free.
All right.
And she does that. We have a couple of another alumni who was down there. I can't see him. I just see his voice. Austin Jones. Austin, you gonna be on video or you gonna stay incognito?
I'm here.
Ah, there he is. Austin Jones, who is a current, well, he's about to graduate from UC Davis. He will be in chemistry.
Impressive.
If I make something, it'll blow up. So he really knows what he's doing in chemistry. We have Tarisha Graves.
Hey.
What's up, Tarisha?
Hey, Richmond, California.
Florida A&M Law School. And who is a lawyer big time, so don't nobody doing crazy because Laura, she'll get you. And we have two current college prep students in Alive and Free. Jaira, I think I'll make you permanent on the show every week. Jaira Martin, a senior in high school, and Jason. I'm going to use Jason, also with us. Jason. Mr. Stella, see you in the dark. You want me to have him brighten up his?
Ooh, please.
Okay, we'll try his voice. Okay, so we're all going to plunge in and begin the discussion of this unbelievable, remarkable program we call Financially Alive and Free. And Don, we're going to start with you as to how this came about. We're going to assume nobody knows because they don't. And why we think it is so different, so beneficial, and so wonderful to the young people that come to Alive and Free Omega Boys Club. So Don, where'd Don go?
Well, I know he said his connection was kind of strange. And so he was trying to get back in.
Lord.
I'll text him right now.
Okay.
Do I have to ad lib? I'm kind of good. Okay, well, Demetria, I got to go to you, and you can tell us how it all started, and then we'll go to him, and you hand it back to him. How's that?
Hey,
All righty.
not bad when you get to go to an Emmy Award winner as Plan B, huh? Mhm.
All righty. Hi, everybody. Yes, Financially Live and Free basically started out what Mr. Don saw. Is he back on?
Yeah. Yep. You froze for a minute, but you're back.
No, he's not back. Okay, but you're back.
Oh,
Go
I'm
ahead.
back. Okay, yeah. So Financially Live and Free started as kind of, I think, can I say like a met need?
Yes.
Just Don observing kids, collegians going off to school, coming back with loads of debt and questions around money and what's that. And then myself, I stepped up and I'm just like, I'm tired of my situation financially. What do I do? And the class literally started by Don sending me a question and was like, answer this question. And so I would respond back, and then from that response came more responses. From all those responses came just the whole like methodology, and it just like it was a battle. It was a praise report. It was a testimony. Like all that was all in the founding of Financially Live and Free, and or the finding of Financially Live and Free, and it from there it took off. And I do not exactly remember how the matching of the whole methodology to a Live and Free happened. Like I don't remember like that, but I remember like Don bringing me something and it was just like, check this out. And then from there it was just like, whoa, look what this is. And I was like, well, I guess it's here. I guess I'll go on and teach it. And so that's how it started. So I'm the first student of the course, and the course has literally changed my financial trajectory. And there it has. Here we are. Comerica sponsoring.
Can I jump in, Demetra? I remember when Dr. Marshall did a whole thing on That's a Problem. Do you remember that, Dr. Marshall?
I sure do.
Did a whole thing on That's a Problem.
That was my little poem.
That's a problem.
Rap that I couldn't rap, but
if you don't know, that's a problem or something. And see, and Don never missed a class. He never missed a Tuesday class, and he came to Thursday classes. And I remember him sitting back there taking notes. He was always taking notes. Do you remember when he did the whole thing on That's a Financial Problem, Mr. Demetra?
Well, we have that as sayings now, but I don't remember the whole. Oh, I know, I'm bad.
Sitting back there taking notes and just transferring it into money. You know, he was always transferring stuff into money. Okay.
I was told that Don is rebooting his computer, and wouldn't know it wouldn't work right at the time when he's featured on this major production that we're doing. Yeah, I remember that. That was, I think I have that in my somewhere saved. That's a problem. And Demetra, how when and we're gonna talk about how different this is, what makes it so different, but how many meetings did you and Don have? How much?
We still have meetings. The meetings have not stopped.
Before you actually felt something that you could share with the young people.
I think Don and I were in it like a good year before we felt like this was something that we can like teach and hand over. It's very similar to the Omega model itself. Like you have to be like, this is something you have to live in order to teach it. Like this is something that you truly have to like believe, live, like gone through it. This is what you filter your life through it, like before you could teach anything like this. So I want to say Don and I were we were in about a year before we were just like, this needs to be taught. And then even in starting the teaching, even as I started teaching, like it started to evolve as well. Like, so it's definitely not what it started out to be, like what we started it with, you know. It's definitely has evolved along the way. And I think another good thing to mention is it's probably a question like, well, who is Don? Like, why him?
Right.
And he hates talking about himself, but I always do it. So Don is a former board member of the Omega Boys Club, but he has a background in finance. Like, he was a trader. Managers out there. So that's always been, he's coming on so he can step in. So that's always his mind is money. His mind is how to you know, stay out of debt. His mind is how to build wealth. Like, that's just like how he functions. So it doesn't surprise me that his role at Omega is all about finance, because that's what he views. That's his lens, you know, like how to get better than that. So that's his niche. That's what he's done. And I was like, he was the guru, and I'm like, I need help. So how do we do this? And yeah, the questions started, and and it had to be like a good year back and forth of questions and digging and me throwing stuff back at him. So it wasn't just a one-way thing. He was learning as well. So it was it was a really good exchange, and here we are.
And let me just say, because I don't know if he's going to pop on at all. I see his name,
He's
but
back.
I don't know if he's there. I know he's having difficulties getting on. I mean, the whole idea is we were sending these young people off to college. Their lives were completely changed. We had actually kept them alive, unharmed by violence, and free from incarceration. And we moved them to, you know, through, you know, 253 college graduates and so on and so forth. But
No.
then we felt if we could move it to the next level. And it was really Don that sort of said, Doc, you know, and then we had, you know, we also had them costing out their colleges and all this kind of thing. Well, maybe we haven't doing that then. Maybe we weren't even doing it. But he really wanted, again, because his background in finance, and we can keep them alive and free, let's teach them how to handle their money. You know, let's teach them how to handle their money. So, Demetria, let's talk about what makes this different. And a little of that was in the video that was shown as we moved forward early. But what makes this different in financial literacy courses and financial education courses? What makes it different? Oh,
What is different is that can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, what makes
Okay,
this
but
different?
you f***ed up, and we're trying to figure out why.
Oh, okay. What makes this different is we aim to break cycles in this class. I always say, what is the use of telling you the difference between a checking and a savings account, or where is the best savings account, or the best money market, and what that can do for you, and this is that. I'm like, I can give you all that information, but if you cannot keep your money in the bank to utilize the resources, what good is that stuff for you, right? If you get a hold of a credit card and you destroyed your life, basically, what good is it doing for you, right? So getting to the bottom of just like how you view money, your spending habits, like where did all this come from? So that is what we do here. You won't hear me talk about the difference between like what's the checking account, what's the savings account. Like, you won't like hear me, that we don't have a class on that. We have a class on talk to me. I want you to go talk to someone who's influential in your life. Like, I want you to talk with them, and I want you to journal about that, and I want you to come back to class and let's dig some stuff out. Like, what similarities are coming up for you? Like, what thoughts do you have about this, right? As we're going through the germs, like from bad information, bad examples, what's some stuff that you've seen? Not only what have you seen, like what's some things that you're doing now, right? And then showing how that affects your pockets, right? So it's we want to get to the point where your thinking is changing so that you can put them to great use. So that's where we are here.
I think the part that struck me early on, and a lot of struck me about his mouth, because this is based on, you know, our whole alive and free prescription, you know, the germs, the risk factors, the commandments of violence. It's based, it models that completely. But I remember the first time we did this and you told the young people, to look at their family history around money. Now, you know, look, I'm college educated, but I didn't know a damn thing about money. I'll just tell you the truth, right? You know, I didn't know at all. I just knew get a check, you know, maybe pay your bills. But I had no clue. I had no advice about money, period. And, you know, each of us probably, maybe Mrs. Stell, myself, could talk about our pitfalls when it came to that. But when you went home and told them to go home and look and talk to their families, their loved ones about their relationship with money, I was like, ooh, they gonna get in trouble. That's the first thing I thought of. But that in itself was very different because I never talked to my parents about money at all. I never talked to my parents about money. You know, other things I talked to them, but here I was going out into the world. I never talked. I needed money. I never had a conversation with them. I know they paid the bills. I didn't know much about the financial history. I know that, you know, we all had enough to eat sometimes, you know, as 9 kids in a 2-bedroom house. But I know my parents went through all kind of stuff behind money and just never talked to them about that. So I remember that was the first thing that blew my mind was, wow. And then everything built on from that and from on to that. And I think that is really probably the beginning of, you know, their whole conversation about, you know, learning of, you know, we don't get any advice about that at all. And I'm not just talking about investing. That's a whole different thing. I'm talking about just the way people in your life think about the use of money, period, how they feel about money. I mean, how many times have we said in our community, I will say this, you know, you see a big TV, see a nice car, you know, and they don't own a house, right? That kind of thing, right? And consumers, not builders, that's big now. But you know, unless you talk about that stuff and talk to the people you love about it, I thought that was so different that I knew this was going to be different. I mean, would you agree with that? And you
Oh, absolutely. And that, I mean, the questions that Don would send me were that's what they were about, right? Like, you know, it wasn't about like, well, Demetra, talk to me about where's how much do you have in your savings account and how much do you want to be in your savings account? Like, those weren't the questions. It was like, you've seen that you talk with your mom about money, or tell me about it. Like, how did you see your mom handle finances in the house? Like, those were the type of questions, right? Or like, tell me, like, why do you think you spend the way you spend? Like, where do you think that came from? Like, you know, so I had to do some digging and some thinking and some figuring out, right? And I was like, okay, well, what does this have to do? And I mean, if he'll tell you, Mr. Don, like, it was some tug of war conversations we had, like, excuse me, but why do I need to do it? But it's emotional and stuff like this comes up, like, right, when you're digging at the root of things. So that is basically how the class started. And so even at the start of it, I was like, yeah, this is something different. Because any financial course that I sat in or that I was a part of, it was like, I can't tell you. I was like, if I learn one more time, account. If you tell me the debit card does this, like, I could teach that class with my eyes closed because that's all I learned. But I'm like, I don't even keep the money in the bank to use this stuff. What the heck do I need to do, right? So, yeah, that was the foundation of the class for sure.
Okay, Donna, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm still still for some reason, everything's dragging. So, yeah, hopefully you can hear me, huh?
We can hear you. She covered most of it.
You look
You're
great.
fine.
Sorry about that.
And if you, we talked about the beginning, and because we gotta, you know, I think she's done a great job. But you were the one that came up with this whole thing in the first place and said this should be part of Alive and Free, what we do at Alive and Free. And so why don't you say a little bit about it, and then we'll move on and talk to the young people who've had the class and the effect that it's had on them.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry. First of all, it's great to see you, family. I mean, I miss being in person and seeing you all. This is just, yeah, this is at least as close as it gets, sort of thing. So, and if for some reason I start to drag or something, the technology goes up, just somebody wave or something, and I can switch to phone or something. But anyway, I'm not sure what y'all covered, but it was basically came in, watched the Alive and Free method take place for a number of years and literally transition kids from a certain thinking that was caught up. That was sort of moved through. The kids go off to college and they become scholars and they go on for advanced degrees. And then I started seeing all this debt that they would come back with. And I just didn't understand that. I understood college is really expensive, but there's also ways of taking care of that debt. And then it was sort of a natural. I started to see symptoms that took place in people's financial life. And I'm sure Ms. Dimitra kind of shared that with you, that we had some really deep and heavy and tense conversations sometimes, because trying to work the thinking out of something you've always been told by the people you're surrounded with, people you trust. You think that's good information because they're your loved ones, they're your neighbors, they're people in your community. And so we had to kind of pull that out, sort that out, which is a tough component. But what we found is it completely aligned with the model that we use in Alive and Free on Tuesdays. So it's just like plugging in these different germs, symptoms, coachisms, and it just kept on evolving, working with Miss Dimitra, because she was the one that was suffering from certain things or having certain symptoms. And so when those would happen, we just kind of write them down and we said, wow, this is the model, and so the model just started to build. And it was really exciting because we had that in the sense when the young people go through the Tuesday night model, they already knew the language and they're familiar with it. So that was a huge boost. So yeah, it's yeah.
So let's plug in some of these things for the folks who are listening and say, well, they don't know the model. What is the model, right? So one of the things we say that our young people, when it comes to violence, they're infected. They get an infected mindset. And they get an infected mindset because of bad information, bad advice, bad example, and bad instruction. We call those the germs, right? That's how they, they start to think that they need to get into violence because they need to survive. So the infection starts there through the germs. Well, you took that model, or that whole thing of, the germs, and you made the germs of financial violence. So I always like hearing those, because just lay out for people that when we went from germs of physical violence or violence period, and you put germs of financial violence, they would be like, oh yeah, I just applied this to my finances. So just lay those, both of you and Dimitra, lay those germs out for us. I love hearing it.
Yeah, we just plugged in financial. So bad financial information. Dimitra?
Bad financial advice.
Right. Bad financial instruction.
Bad financial example.
And then you had them talk about some of the topics that you talk about in this semester-long course when it comes to staying financially alive and free. Once they've been infected with those germs, what are some of the topics you talk about and drag out of them?
Oh yeah, so we do. There's, to open the class up, there's a journaling, a week-long journaling assignment that they have to submit, and that assignment includes tracking your everything that goes out, everything that comes in. You need to track it. Now, during the course of this assignment, we want you to write about what you're feeling, right? Something comes up, maybe you unexpectedly get $50, didn't know it was coming. How do you feel? Like, write about that. Tell us what you're going through there. Or maybe some of the students have a car. Maybe you unexpectedly had to put a new transmission in your car. I don't know. Like, what? Talk to us financially about how that made you feel. Like, talk us through that. And then part of that assignment is also like, that's the one where you got to talk to someone with influence in your life, be it a parent, a guardian, an aunt, cousin, mentor. Talk with them about their views about money, listen to them, and then after, like, do a journal around that about your thoughts and all that good stuff. And so that opens the class, that gets the students to like how they spend their money and just getting their mind into a good place. So from there, we then go to the germs and we dive in, and we always, so far, we've used the Antoine Walker story, which is a pretty powerful story. This man, at his peak, he earned what, 65 million, and
As
that's
a NBA basketball player.
yep, and that's after taxes and all that. And he wasn't just broke, but he was in debt, you know. And so we use that story to analyze the germs and pull out, like, you know, where was the bad financial information, where was the bad financial example, and so on and so on. So we use different stories, different movie clips, news articles. We use all these stories, but the kids, all the students, using people's lives to walk us through this. But what is the main purpose here? Like whose life are you looking at? And everyone knows, like, ultimately I'm looking at my life in this and where I stand in all this that we're pulling out, you know? So we take them through that. From there, we take them through the symptoms, and then identifying the absolute biggest symptom, which is their thinking, the commandments of financial violence. And that's the shift that has to take place. Because if this is how you think, this is how you're going to act,
Yep.
right? And so
Yep.
once you get that switch starting to take place, that transition, then you know you got something. Because when you start to think differently, your actions start to look differently, right? So moving them through their thinking, and then from there we get into the risk factors. And again, it's different lessons, activity into this. And I want to say three of the biggest classes we've had two already this semester, and that's one on wants versus needs, and then another one on credit cards, and ultra powerful classes that take place during the semester. And then another big one will be around anger, fear, and pain around money.
Yep.
And that one tends to reveal quite some information to the students as well, because your anger, fear, and pain around your finances tend to make you do things to eliminate what those feel, you know, to take those feelings and all that stuff away. You don't want to feel that, right? So what can I do to eliminate this? And so we get into like what that looks like. About my childhood was just the boys on the block. Like, you know, it was a whole lot of anger, fear, and pain around their finances that led them that way, right? So that tends to be a pretty powerful course as well. And then by the end, we hand over rules for living, and we hand over financial coachisms. Like the whole model basically translates to finances. And then there's a final that they have to submit, and they have to walk themselves through 4 years of college. And how are you going to do this? And how are you going to do this with your new thinking? The idea is that we want to see the start of the new thinking that needs to take place, right? And so that is like the ending piece. There is the college budget. And what's so and some of the students still use it. It's a living document. So it's not something that, you know what I'm saying, you submit and you're just done. Yeah, some of them do that, but you have some of the students that's like, I still go and plug in numbers to make this make sense for me, right? So it's a living document that you can take on throughout your whole 4 years of college, and even grad school if you continue on after. So yeah.
That's the outline of the course. And if people are watching, you see how in-depth this thing is? This is not just, like you said, thinking about a checkbook, thinking about, you know, savings account. It's not even really talking about investing. The in-depth of this course is major, all those topics. And then there is a final, and it's done before they go to college. So hopefully it will impact their thinking as they move on into their college education, and not after they're finished and have borrowed all of this money. So let's hear from folks who are new to this, just getting it right now, and folks who benefited from the past. And let me start with Dayrell. Dayrell, you are now teaching this thing, right? And I I guess your thoughts when you first got into, the college prep class, and what do you think when you first heard this thing and went through it, and how has it impacted you?
I feel like Miss Demetra always likes to tell this story to kind of show how it impacted me. Where like we started the class, and I remember just talking to Miss Demetra about like needing to get a credit card. And I was like, but Miss Demetra, like you need to build credit. Like, how are you gonna do that without getting a credit card? So I just felt like I didn't understand why, and she was always like, just hold on, it's gonna make sense. And throughout the class, she did end up addressing like why we didn't need a credit card. And I feel like, the biggest impact was, I think, looking at our family and really like what are the patterns that you pick up from your family, or like the conversations that you do or don't have with your family. Like I think also just how much media or how much influence other people have in your life to shape how you feel like you should spend your money, and I feel like there really isn't any other place where you can get that, where you can explore like your feelings or the stories, of your background, or the stories that you've been telling yourself about what you feel like you need about money. So like I was just really into it. And then when I got to Berkeley, I was like, oh, let me see if someone else is like doing this kind of work. And no one really was. And I felt like, particularly for my circle of people, like a lot of folks who are very like really strong activists, who are very critical of like the system, it wasn't particularly difficult to talk about finances, right? When folks feel, I think like rightly so, incredibly like marginalized from the systems that we live in, right? And so I felt like I understand that and I could speak to that and create like a different perspective on how we can how really taking control of our finances, or really understanding our finances and understanding how like our positionality is within the broader financial system could be more like powerful, and could really like be collectively powerful too in the long run. So, Ms. Demetra was always so supportive when I talked to her about just kind of like wanting to do this and how people were looking for this information. And she just would talk me and kind of coach me. And I started teaching the model and just started adding different things to it. And here we are co-teaching together now.
Thank you, hon. Jair, this is new to you. You're getting it. You're halfway through the course, maybe not even halfway. What has been your impressions so far? And what's been a highlight of it for you so far?
For me, just to piggyback on what Ms. Dayrell said, assessing our families was like the biggest thing for me. Like I come from a single parent household, and my mom lives, like paycheck to paycheck basically. And it's just so interesting because like you said, Dr. Marshall, like I've never had a conversation with my mom before this class about finances. And so yeah, like that was just the biggest thing. And to see like how the germs, the bad examples, the bad instructions, the bad advice, how it truly affects you when you don't think it affects you. And just how in our communities we don't pay a lot of attention to finances.
Right.
So this class really forced me to look at it, and to look at when I got my first summer job, like what did I do with my money? I went to go spend it at the mall on shoes, and because that's what we were taught. We were taught, okay, you get your own, then you could go provide for yourself in that way if you want to. You could go, get all the things that you never were able to get, that your parents couldn't get for you. So that's like been the biggest thing for me. And a highlight, honestly, just the conversations, like being able to talk things out, and being able to be with my alive and free peers, and just feel connected, like we're all learning through this together. So yeah, even if it is on Zoom and virtual, it still feels so much very connected.
which is remarkable for your instructors because they can do that on Zoom and get the same thing that we had in the classroom. We're close to it. That's great. Austin Jones getting ready to graduate. Took the class. Yes, sir. You're alive and free, financially alive and free journey.
I am, yeah. So mine started, with Miss Demetria. We took her math class. We started with the real basics. And then every night after class, I remember Don, we would always have these conversations about like spending and like, because I was at City College at the time. And so we would get our like financial aid money and I was kind of just like spending it on food. And, I didn't really like, I'm sorry, what was her name? Jaira was saying like, we don't have these conversations with our family. So I didn't really understand how important it was, especially going into adulthood, how important it was to just think about your spending habits and how unhealthy they are. And you didn't really like, realize that. And so, yeah, like those conversations with Don definitely helped me. And then, when I was applying to college, I wanted to go to Morehouse. That was my number one choice. That's the only school I applied to, the only one I wanted to go to. I got accepted, but the financial aid package wasn't really as good as I would have liked it to be, And so I really had to like just think about everything that we learned in that class and just was like, I in the end, I don't think I could go to that school just because it was like $50,000 a year in, for tuition. And I was just like, for a bachelor's degree, that's a heavy burden, So I ended up turning down Morehouse. But I go to an awesome school now. UC Davis is a wonderful school. And I have a little bit of debt, from student loans, like for computers and stuff, but it's like 5% what I would have paid at Morehouse, you know what I mean? So, and then I was also like, I'm terrified of credit card, or at least I was terrified of credit cards, but I think that one of the things, especially as I've gotten older, you can't really be scared of things like that. You'll only be so much scared if you allow it to control your life, you know what I mean? So credit cards can be bad things, but they can also be good things. And while I don't have a credit card yet, I learned that there are other ways that you could like build credit. Like you could get like a secured credit card, and then you put money on that credit card and it allows you to, still build your credit, but you don't have to worry about going into debt, you know what I mean? Or having to pay back a lot of money just pay back a lot of money, So I've learned a lot from the class for sure.
Austin, you are one of my prime examples of the class, because I remember the day, and you really wanted to go to Morehouse. You went down on the college tour.
Oh,
you got that maroon sweatshirt. You came back in. You was wearing it. I'm going to the house. I'm going to the house. You sent in your application. Then you got your financial aid papers back and said, "They ain't give me no money."
Nah. And I still got the picture on my my Instagram. I had the Morehouse sweater, the Morehouse hat, everything. Still on my Instagram, even though I didn't go. But
you looked at that and said, "Doc, they ain't give me no money." And I remember your very words. You said, "Doc, I don't want no loans. I don't want any loans." You said it like, "I don't want no loans." You said that, and I don't want no loans. And so,
especially those loans. There was a lot of loans, like $50,000 a year. You know what I mean? So I was like, "Yeah, no, I can't do that."
And I remember we made the decision. We sat and we talked about it. And we came up with an alternate plan, and the alternate plan was pretty much a debt-free plan. You went down to Long Beach City College. You stayed there, got all your requirements taken care of, and then you got pretty much a full ride to UC Davis. And I also think about you, and I mean, it's not a knock on the education at Morehouse, but I think about you is, dang, Austin will be graduating with 40, 50 grand in loans.
Oh, it would be more than that, yeah, because it was about 50,000 a year, and then they didn't want to give me all my units. You know what I mean? That would start off as a sophomore, so it'd be sophomore, junior, senior at 50,000 a year, $150,000 in debt just for a bachelor's. I was like, yeah, I definitely cannot do that.
But had you not had that class, and Don knows, I want to see the early days of Omega, but certainly the early days of the club, young people went to college because of the major and the school and the location without really thinking about, the finances that were attached to it. And we needed something, and thank God for Don, to get young people also to focus on that. And that I, as a couple other examples I have, but you right here was the one that said, when you came and said, I don't want no loans, I said, oh, something happened in that class. Because that was right up there with where I'm going to school and the major that I want. And to see you now graduate pretty much close to being debt-free from UC Davis is, yeah.
If I did not take that class, I could honestly say I probably would have went to Morehouse and accumulated that debt. I kid you not. I probably would have did it. Yeah.
Hey Doc, can I jump in real quick?
Yes.
It's funny that you mentioned that because I was gonna just briefly tell my story. For those who don't know, I'm one of the first Omegas to go away to school. We talking about 1989, okay? Long time ago. And we didn't have this class back then, as you remember, Doc. And I can remember sitting at the kitchen table, my mom filling out my loan applications. She did everything for me. I didn't even read those papers, okay? I remember she just came and said, okay, Malcolm, I need you to sign. I was like, okay, you know. So not only did I not have the talk with my family, we didn't have the class at Omega. I got to Howard, and that 1 year cost me about 15 years of my life because I didn't have that class. And I'm not exaggerating. I messed up so bad in that year just because I didn't know. I was writing checks. You know, we didn't have debit cards, so you wrote checks. So I just figured if I write my name on this, I can get some food. Okay. And I'll just start writing on this piece of paper. I didn't think of it as someone's going to want it back. Anyway, I know it sounds silly, but
nope.
I didn't think of it like that. It got so bad, I couldn't have a bank account in the United States for at least 10 years. I had to get on my girlfriend's bank account to build my name back up. And then finally through her, I was able to get an account. I mean, I was on some list, some database. They was like, no, Malcolm Marshall, no. And going back to the loan papers, I never read them. So in my mind, they weren't real. So I just forgot about them. And but they didn't forget about it. So interest, I didn't know what interest was. Let me tell you, I didn't pay off that loan until about 7 years ago. I mean, it followed me so long. So yes, what you were saying, we didn't have those talks in the beginning. I am prime example of not having those talks in the beginning, you know, and that hole that you get in, it's so hard to get out of that hole.
Thank you, sir. And I'm sorry.
I'm out of it now. And I'm trying to get an 800, but thanks to people like Don, who I still will text every once in a while. I'll be like, Don, what do you think about this? What should I do about it? And he's always available and, you know, with great advice, but you don't want to fall in that hole. That's all I'm saying, because I couldn't rent a car. I remember I'd be on dates and stuff, and they'd be like, oh, why don't you just do this? I'd be like, because I forgot my wallet. You know, it followed me so long.
These are the stories that you get in the class that, you know, what? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Jason, you are new. You're a senior. Your thoughts, soft-spoken Jason. Soft-spoken. Let's see what we can get out. Jason, your impression so far.
So far, when I found out about this class, I felt like a sense of relief since based on my past spending habits, I needed this class. Like growing up, I had always, like, I wouldn't spend a lot of money on stuff, but when I grew up and I actually got a job, I just started spending all of my money, all of my income on the things that I'd always wanted. So based off of that created bad habits for me. So when I found out about this class and we were talking about our needs and our wants, like a thought popped into my head that I'd been confusing my wants for needs, and that became like a terrible habit since all my money was gone. And I just ended up with a lot of things that just depreciated in value, like shoes. Like I wore my shoes out and they lost all their value. So right now I'm just trying to, you know, learn as much as I can from this class and take away everything that I can, since I'm going to be going to college, and those habits will not fly in college since, you know, it's college. Like you just need to grow up and you need to like find better habits for spending and saving. So that's basically what I've learned.
Thank you. And you haven't had it all yet. That is wonderful to hear. All right, Attorney Graves. Attorney Graves. That still sounds so good. You know, that girl, I remember that was a dream in your eye. Like, I want to go to law school. And there she is. Yeah, you're going to put us up. You're going to buy us all. Okay. Go ahead, Teresa.
Hi, Dr. Marshall. I'm here with Damani. This is Tootie's daughter. You see?
Oh, that's her?
Yeah. I still remember creating my financial plan. And honestly, I will say now, when was it? I started the program back in 2012.
Mhm.
Well, 2011, because I went to
Mhm.
law school. I started law school in 2012. And I am finally at the point where I am really focused on, doing the work to become financially free. I am now investing. I'm before I pay myself, I own my own firm. And so when each settlement comes in, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna put this amount towards my brokerage account. I have 2 brokerage accounts.
Well, hold on. I have to jump in.
I knew you were.
Said, I own my own firm. I own, and she used own 2 different ways. Own meaning property and own meaning personal. All right. She owns her own.
Yes.
Okay, that's all I wanted to say right now.
Hi, Mrs. Sale. So I have two brokerage accounts. I actually started one for Damani. I have a custodial brokerage account for her too. So while I'm investing for me, this is new for me, and I'm taking her along on the journey with me so that she can, know more about being financially free. And I talk with her through it, like, well, look how much money you made while you were sleeping. She loves Roblox, so she has some Roblox shares. So she has 2 Roblox shares. And so yeah, I'm definitely, like, now I've been out of law school. I finished law school in 2015. And so I've been out of law school almost 6 years now. And finally, I am at the point where I am paying off student loans. I finally paid off one of my student loans from undergrad. And now I can start tackling the student loans from law school. But yeah, I will say the class was definitely impactful for me. I'm actually in therapy now, and one week we were talking about relationships with money and how growing up with my mom, like how her spending and how her relationship with money has affected my relationship with money.
Mm-hmm.
And I have anxiety around that, and just dealing with how my mom she's really carefree, I would say, with money. I don't remember seeing anyone like investing or doing anything really productive with their money. And so I didn't know. And so I'm learning now, how to set myself up for the future and how to leave, create some generational wealth, for my niece and for my future kids. I don't have any kids yet, but yeah. That's pretty much.
When it comes to the thing, your own firm, girl, I remember when you were, okay, all right. When it comes to the thinking, and really the actions are driven by the thinking. I love, once we get the germs settled in, bad financial advice, bad financial information, bad financial instruction, bad financial example, then we talk about that thinking. And we have commandments of violence, thou shalt not snitch, thou shalt get thy respect, so on and so forth. You put together commandments of financial violence. So just recite some of those, because people would be surprised when they hear them. Now, number one, how much they parallel, the commandments of violence, but just the way you frame the the commandments of financial violence. So just say some of those, Don and Ms. Demetra, please.
Buy what thy deserve.
Oh my God.
Buy what I deserve. Okay, Ms. D.
This one is always a good one. Two of them, always a good one. Thou shalt get loans and thou shalt be no saver.
Thou shalt be no saver. All right.
Those are always two good ones.
Yeah. Couple more. You got any more? Just a couple more. Let folks know how the thinking is that way. When you think that way, your actions are going to follow.
Handle thy financial business later. And
yes.
And that's a big one, because when we start to see some of the symptoms of not opening up the mail, that's a symptom. It's not no shame, blame, or fault. It's just a symptom that there's an infection there, right? So we're always going to push that down the road a little bit. So that's one.
I think I struggle with that, Don. Definitely, my mom.
Was someone saying something? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, just handle that financial business later. Get what you want right now at this moment, and it's been tough for me because I've kind of, instead of having a savings account, I've taken a portion of my money and put it into the stock market, and it gave me anxiety at first because it's like I can't see it in my account anymore. And it was like, I know it's over here, but just like not having immediate access to that like gave me so much anxiety. And it was like, where is this coming from? And it's because my mom, like, she would just, before any like responsibilities like bills or anything, it's like, if I want this over there, I'm gonna get that. I don't care what other, important bills like the rent or something is due. I'm gonna go buy that right now and get that instant satisfaction. And so breaking that cycle is really slow. Yeah.
And it sounds like you've broken
I
this
think, I think what Tarisha is showing us right now, which is also pretty powerful, is that it doesn't stop.
Yeah.
It doesn't stop.
Exactly.
So she didn't mention that while she was in class, she paid off debt so that she can go to school and attend school, right? And she did that, and she went on and she got her law degree and all that good stuff, and now she's at another phase in her life, and most stuff has popped up, and it's like it's when you start to when your income starts to increase, when money starts to flow a little more easily than what it did in previously, like there's different challenges you start to face, right?
Mm-hmm. And then there's people that expect you
to have something that you just hate and like, oh, it's literally like a lifelong journey. And to this day, I'm student number 1, and now I'm probably student number, I don't know, 157, right? I'm still a student,
right.
And that's not going to end. And as you're introduced and more financial doors open and freedom starts to look a different way, like stuff starts to knock back at the door again. And you like, well, I thought I had this conversation with you. Go sit down, and you got to go sit down with it and figure it out, So it's a great example of, as you continue to move, you evolve, and dang, here I am again. So it's remarkable to hear that you're in therapy handling it, right? It's remarkable that you're like, I saw this behavior in my mom, and this is where it got us, and I need to nip this in the bud. So like this, it's really powerful. Yeah.
What's great about this thing is so prescriptive that once you understand the commandments that create bad financial behavior, you're aware of that. You're aware of thou shalt be no savior. That you're looking and see if your mind is operating on that thinking. That's why I like those commandments so much, because the thinking then results in the actions. But once you know those commandments, those are things to stay away from. And identifying those things specifically, it's a godsend, because you know that if you end up in a spot, it's because you were living by these bad financial commandments. And having that list right in front of you, it's almost like a checklist for you. You got, am I thinking like this? Am I thinking like this? Am I thinking like this? And I'm thinking like this. Thou shalt not be no saver. Am I thinking like that? you know that if you think like that, it's going to produce bad financing. And so Don, this thing that you came up with that parallels, it's so prescriptive. You can actually look at yourself and your financial life and bad finance. It's just wonderful to carry around in your head. And I can't say enough about this. Now I want to ask something else, but see.
So,
lady,
and before you do that, I just need to say that what we just witnessed between Teresa and Demetra is an example of this whole financially alive and free process. To get in touch with what's going on with you, what you need to do to see it, say it, and then to be supported and given clarity around it. This is what goes on. So this is a perfect example of how this work is done.
And Doc, if I can just add to that too, Teresa, you know, you've taken it from somebody controlling your financial life to now you're in control of your financial life. And that's what we're switching over, is we think we're in control, but all of a sudden it gets out of control. And by that time it goes so deep, right? But you're now in control. You're making investments, you're adding to your 401k, you're starting to invest in yourself rather than just, you know, purchasing and such. So that's fantastic. That's a real switch, you know, that's the thing. You can learn all the skills you want. I can teach you how to invest. I can teach you how to balance a checkbook if people do that anymore. I can teach you how to do online banking and such. But the key thing is what you've done is you've switched that thought and now you're in control. And you're right, as Mr. Mitra says, this goes on for your entire life. It's just part of how you live now. And then you teaching this young woman, this young girl here, you know, to do the same. So, you know, no greater sermon than a good example. So
yeah,
it's the lifestyle.
Now I have to, like, you know, like I'm like, if I'm gonna spend $500 on my purse, I can invest $500 too. Like I should be as willing to invest $500 if I'm willing to spend $500. And so that's the, you know, before I spend something like that, I'm like, okay, well, how much am I going to invest to and make that money back? Like I'm really thinking about that more consciously, and I'm not just like recklessly spending like before. Cause I come into a lot of money sometimes. Like this week I settled a case for $50,000. I mean, that's not my 50,000, but it's, you know, for my client, I settled a case for 50,000. You know, I get a portion of that, but it's like, okay, what am I going to do with this money? And so I've already said, you know, to myself, said how much of that is going to be invested in and how much is going to go into my actual account.
You know, Mr. Mitra, one of my favorite parts of the class, and it's funny because normally I'm not in there because I'm in there working in my room, but being on Zoom, I get to hear everything. When you did that discussion of wants versus needs, oh my God, that to me is just, you really be thinking, do I want this or do I need this? And I remember, I know Jair was all over that discussion, wants versus needs. That thing went on for 2 hours. Is this a want or is this a need? And you never even really think about that. Actually, you just think about want. I don't even you think about need, and just to have these things clicking in your head, you know, is this, and then to have young people say, I mean, that I just love that whole, and I know you love it because you think that's one of the biggest classes that you do.
Mm-hmm. And I think another thing that's just powerful about that class is that the impact that society has on what we consider to be a need versus a want, you know? And I allow the students to come up with the definition, like, what's the definition of a want? And what's the definition of a need? A need. You need it in order to survive. Like you gotta have it, right? And it's like, okay, so is deodorant a want or a need, right? And so it's like, it really sparks like a great conversation. And I'm just like, because I know people who do not have deodorant and they're surviving. So like, what does that mean? Like, talk to us. But like, once we like really like get into the conversation, it's really just like how society the impact that has on like defining what our actual needs and wants, you know, versus wants, what that looks like. So it's always a good class. It's always a good class.
Well,
This year was pretty remarkable. I really enjoyed this year's
Miss
class. Yeah.
Demetra, I'm one of those people that has deodorant as a need.
See?
But, you know,
Many
that's
in the
just
class.
me though, you know.
Yeah, in the class you can do. No, it's a need, because if I go to work and I'm like, I'm saying this is what I know to be true. I know people who do not have deodorant and they are surviving. So how help me? Let's walk through this, you know? So it's always it's always a great discussion. Always a great discussion.
And the beauty of that class is that, you know, the people who are selling you things, they tell you that you need everything. You need everything they got.
Absolutely.
You need everything. You need whatever it is they selling. You need this. The way they do those commercials, where they do this, there's nothing out there that you don't need, because it will do something to your life.
Hey, Doc,
and their whole money-making scheme is built on convincing you that you need it.
Doc, you know where
and so
it's bad?
you to even get them thinking about wants versus needs is anathema to them. That's the last thing they want you thinking about. Is this really a need? Because they're saying, of course you need it. Of course you need it. You know, and the models they put in the commercial, whatever they do to get you to buy it is what you need. But you have them thinking like that. In fact, they probably even like this show right now, because they're saying, man, you're getting these people thinking. Maybe they don't really do what I'm trying to sell them.
I'm gonna tell you what's worse than the commercials, and I'm sure the young people can agree right now. Instagram. Oh my Lord. Instagram is trying to sell everything under the sun, targeted to you every minute. It is, I mean, it's like an assault almost on your money.
And it don't help because everything is visual on there too. You know what I mean? So and Instagram didn't used to be there wasn't so many ads. Every other scroll now there's something sponsored, you know, so they're really trying to sell you.
Well, I just want to add too, it's, you know, we're in the attention economy now, the attention economy. Everyone's trying to grab your attention. So that's where all the money is made. So if you keep that in mind, even YouTube, 70% of the things watched on YouTube are on the right column. So they're feeding you what they think that you want on these algorithms sort of thing. So that's just YouTube. They have AI that are watching your eyes when you go into a store, and it goes into the biology of you. I mean, these things are actually happening. And I don't think it's something we use a term, don't blame the system, because when we get into blame the system, then we get caught up in this. No, we just got to understand the system and overcome the system. Because the system's always just going to make up something new. And in our days, we had these jingles, they had these songs and get into your head. Now it's way more sophisticated. So this kind of conversation that's in Miss Demetra and with Dayrell and in conversation, you know, I can tell how successful it is. I missed the class. I can tell how successful it is because I can't remember the young man. Is it Jason?
Yeah.
He's talking about sneakers, and he's talking about they lost their value. Wow, that's just brilliant. The idea that we understand that you put that sneaker on and why you do it, and that the value goes down. There's no investment. So this is fantastic.
And Don, let me just add to that real quickly, Doc. It's so easy to spend because it's one click now. I mean, before you even think about it, it's gone. You press one button. All you got to put is like my laptop already has my credit card, so all I'm putting in is security code. Boom, gone.
Yeah, and I think this course has evolved as Ms. Demetra sees things. She says, "Oh no, we need to change this. We need to, you know, we need to adapt to what's changing." And it's sort of like when I think about the woman you talked in the news part, Miss Ford, and she's lived to be 115 years old. You got to have a plan. You might be living into 95. I mean, that's just a long, long time, right? Right. So I think that we forget about this. We want this instant, you know, and click. But, you know, what do you want? What does your financial life look like at 90? I mean, it's just a serious question.
Yeah, I'm reading this book called Resisting the Attention Economy. And it's just like, have y'all heard of it?
No, but it sounds great.
Yeah, it's a new book. I think it might have came out like 1 year ago or something. But like pretty much the author makes this argument of just how much like our attention is being commodified, right? From different angles of just like everything that we're plugged into. And I feel like it goes really well with just this conversation that we had at the last class where Ms. Demetra just talked about like kind of like how we're being owned, right, through debt. And like just an extension of that, like our attention is also being owned, right? And like all the money that's tied to that. So really like, I think this class is really a huge journey to kind of like regain our autonomy and our awareness about ourselves and what we can really like be present with, you know, in the process of our finances.
Because there is a price for not learning this stuff. And that is what, you know, those of you who had the course know, and what's coming up is that financial anger, fear, and pain, right? And when you in that, and Malcolm spoke to it very well, you know, his angst, his emotional residue, you know, his anger, fear, and pain over not having this information, or not knowing the commandments about us, or not knowing bad information, or not having somebody talk to him about finances, because we didn't know, right? The other side can be misery. I mean, it really can be misery, and you know, people do, you know, crazy stuff. I'm gonna say crazy, desperate stuff, you know, when they get in these positions, and they, you know, I've been part of those conversations. I've been in that position myself, you know, without having this information, and, you know, thank God I was able to dig myself out of it. But it's not pretty on that other side. And we're a prevention program as much as we are a real rehabilitation program and an intervention program. And we're that way when it comes to young people in violence, and we're that way when it comes to young people in financial violence. So we don't want you to go through that. We don't want you to go through that. We don't want you to go through that side of it. You know, because it is, you're not a happy camper when it happens. And the decisions you make because you're in that position, then people are, why they do that? Well, because that's where they are now. And some people can't dig themselves out, or don't have the wherewithal, or then there's the whole shame thing that comes from getting there in the first place. And shame can be such a powerful thing, because there's always a way out. But, you know, you're so embarrassed or so ashamed that you got there in the first place that you know, you feel like you can't get out. And Don, I see you press the button. You want to say?
Yeah, I'm just going to say that's really the deep part of this, is this sense of shame, and then we silence ourselves, and then we don't talk about this, and then we go deeper in this, and then of course people are saying, "Oh, you should be able to understand this. Why would you borrow money if you couldn't pay it back?" And then they get, you know, credit card companies are choosing people like Samuel Jackson and Spike Lee, and yeah, I mean, to represent these credit card companies. And that's really infected, because they're just passing on these images without really saying, hey, you know, the writing is about this big. They don't want you to know. You know, they want you to go into debt, because if they have more debt, then that's where they make their money. I mean, I'm just talking straight. So the information's this big. So I think these classes not only make the information this big, but really talk about how that all happens, and that there shouldn't be any shame, blame, or fault, because of the environment we're in is what we're exposed to. And it's very easy for people to dismiss and saying, oh God, that's irresponsible, whatever. No, it's just, you didn't have good information. That's it.
And what we're up against is a huge marketing conglomerate aimed to get us sucked in. And it gets better and more sophisticated all the time. That's why it says, Ms. Demetra said, this is a lifelong battle. And you really have to be on your, you know, you got to really be ahead, because they're coming after you. As soon as this thing is over and we go on. They're coming after us. They're always coming after us. So to see Jaira get this information early, and for Jason, by the way, you know who Jason is, Don?
No.
Tell him who your brother is, Jason. Jason, I said Jason. Jason.
My brother is Jaime.
Oh, is that right? Oh, wow. That's great. That's great. Tell him hi. I haven't seen him for a while.
Yes, Jaime, who was in.
Oh, what a great example he is, huh?
Yeah, who wants to be an astronaut. He got a great example. His brother went to San Jose State and is in the middle of, he gonna be up there.
Yeah, and I see all this breaking of the cycle, like Tarisha and Austin and Dayrell. And this is the thing is, once that cycle's broken, now you don't go back into the cycle. I mean, it's testing you all the time, but you see that, you know, it's, and then you become that example for your kids, you know,
and that's why we actually call it, we don't call it financial literacy. We don't call it financial education. We call it literally financially alive and free, because you are alive and you are free and you're not being controlled and you're not being yanked around, and you know the commandments and you know the risk factors, and you know the germs, and you're in control, and you've dealt with your anger, fear, and pain, and you've had these conversations, and you know, shame is not an issue for you because you really do want to stay alive and free. And I love when I see you and I've seen you, at least Demetra and Don, both of you go teach it to other people, and even in a short time, even Dayrell, how people's eyes are opened in like 3 hours. They'd be like, whoa, my thinking.
I have a friend who I think was in the presentation that Ms. Demetra gave to the Dream SF Fellowship. And I think it was just like one presentation and like maybe a few hours or something. And she was like, I literally made an effort to pay off all my debt because of that presentation, you know?
And that parallels, some get it right away, some get it sooner or later. You know, and Mrs. Dell said, I don't believe they'll never get it. It's just a matter, it says when they'll get it. But some people, when they first hear this, like, I got it. And because it makes so much sense. And some people, it takes longer, but just to watch people's eyes being open to the whole way, it's all driven by the way you think, and saying this is what you're up against is amazing. And you know, I remember we had the two the twins, Kelsey and Chelsea. One they got accepted to Howard and Spelman. Who ain't going to Howard and Spelman? You know, I would go to Howard, I can't go to Spelman. But the point is, I would go. And, you know, we sat down, but because they had the class, it wasn't just about the major, it wasn't just about the school, it was about how much it's gonna cost me. And they also got into UC Davis and UC Santa Cruz. And for them, it came down to, I'm getting more money over here than I am over there. I ain't gonna have to borrow nothing from these UC schools. I'm gonna have to borrow a lot of money to go to these two schools. And the thing that warmed me the most is as we sat down and went through this, and her father and mother were there. I think it's just her dad was there. I think Chelsea looked at me and said, Dr. Marshall, I don't want to have my parents to take out this big old plus loan. And my heart just went. She said, I ain't putting my parents through that. And both of them chose the UC schools primarily on the funding piece. But if they hadn't had that class, you know, who could resist? It's hard to resist. Money would not have been, and because they also costed out them. So when you're having cost out that college education and they can see it on paper after the class, who said the other night in class, the one that's going to Pennsylvania, who is Stephanie? Stephanie got accepted, Don. I'm gonna tell you, she got accepted to the University of Pennsylvania. Great school, nursing program. School costs $85,000 a year. But they gave her enough to get her in. They gave her $55,000 a year. So to her, it's like, man, they gave me all this money. And I said, Stephanie, but you still owe $30,000. Look, And I've been talking to her. She said, well, I can do this, I can do that. I said, Stephanie, look, let me tell you, I know you like it. Well, but I want to go. Look, what did she say after class the other night? At class the other night, Mrs. Still, what did she say? You were right there when she said it. You don't remember?
What did she say? I don't think I need to go to university.
And it is not a knock on the school. It's probably a very good school. She says, maybe I need to go to SIG, but she's thinking about the money and the debt. And she said that, how many classes has she had with you, Mr. Mitra? 5, 4? I think Stephanie's there all the time. So this stuff makes a huge difference in their lives, not just now, but the rest of their lives. But it's because of the way we do it. And I hope as people watch this, understand this is not some little fluff cookie cutter, course but this is really starts up here. And once you get in this, that's where it starts.
And I mean, students have gone different routes too, right? So, I mean, I think of Alexis Hunter, she did Clark Atlanta, like that was her school and she was going, but she was like, I'm not taking out any loans. So that girl made it a point to be the scholarship queen. And that's how she got through
Clark
Atlanta.
She did it. That's right. Right.
So she and again, that was just like, I'm not graduating with this type of debt, but I know this is where I want to attend. And so she found other alternatives, and made it happen that way, So it's been interesting and pretty exciting to see the paths that folks take in this class. And I know we were just talking about the shame, the guilt, and this and that. And I make it a point to say it as often as I can. Like, we don't use bad or good in this class. I say it over and over. This is your journey. This is your journey. Right. And I'm never going to label it bad. I'm never going to label, I'm not going to label anything. Like, this is your journey. And you no judgment at all. And even those folks who were the germs in our life, you can't judge them. Like, that's just what happened, right? Like, that's just where the information came from. I received from them. So it's it's a powerful course, and like I said, it's lifelong. And to this day, I'm still a student in this course. So
you always will be, right?
Always will be. And it's such a lifestyle, and it's a rewarding lifestyle, I know there's been a lot of just, dream school and didn't get to go to school, didn't get to do this, and I'm like, no, it's a lot of what people have been able to do because of their thinking, the thinking shift and all that good stuff. And it's just been pretty powerful to witness. It really has. So yeah.
We're nearing the end. And I want to give everybody, is there anything you weren't able to say that you want to emphasize, that want to get out to this vast audience that is being exposed to Financially Alive and Free and the way we do it? Please do so, before we get out of here. So anybody any last words you want to get in?
I know we spoke a lot. We spoke a little bit about credit cards and the importance, not the importance, just the importance of credit, right? And establishing your credit. And I'm very excited that the alternative was, and alternative was mentioned, the someone call it, what type of card is that again?
Secure.
The secure credit card, yes, definitely alternative. But there's always the question of, Ms. Demetra, what's worse? No credit or bad credit, right? And so my answer to that, and something that I just want to leave folks with, it's no answer to that. If you're fine, it doesn't matter what you come in contact with, it's going to be ruined. So until you get your thinking in line, until you understand the power of your thoughts and what needs to change, you touch your credit card to build your credit, you're going to destroy it because your thinking isn't straight, right? And so understanding that that question is void until you become financially alive and free, then it's, well, let me tell you what bad credit looks like. Let me tell you what no credit looks like. And let's see what you can do to build your credit. But if your thinking is still out of whack and you living out of your wants versus your needs, and you're down for your credit card, and you doing things for the gram and need all the likes and like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where that is if you are not financially free.
Well said. Well said. Anybody else?
I'll leave you with that.
You want to leave us with something?
I was just going to say, you know, how we saw in these coachisms too, and they're important in our lives in so many ways. But you know, you're only one bad financial decision away. You know, it just can roll off. Whatever coachisms the students are learning, you get it memorized, and then you throw financial in, and it'll stay with you. So, thank you, Coach.
Well, you know, that's my favorite coachism. You're only one bad decision away. My financial favorite, you're only one bad financial decision away. So inserting the word finance into all those coachisms just take you over to that. And so you'll be alive and free, and you'll be financially alive and free. Great for saying. Miss E, you want to say something, Tarisha?
Yeah, I would just say it's a journey. Like I'm 6 years out of, almost 6 years out of law school, and I'm still, you know, learning and growing. You know, with age and time, you know, your thinking is going to change. Your environment is going to change, and so just be gentle with yourself and patient with yourself. If you fall off track, just get back on track, and we'll go from there. And you know, don't too much, you know, look at what you did that was in your eyes as bad. Just keep moving forward. You know, my favorite coachism is don't let your circumstances dictate your behavior.
Yeah,
so
that's the one.
that's the
Financial circumstances dictate your behavior. Go ahead, girl. Yeah.
That's the one that's got you through so many things.
Yep. So that's
Sarah,
mine.
Jason, you want to say anything before I let Missy have her words? Good, you good? You good?
No, I just wanted to say, like, going back to the credit card lesson we had, like, I learned so much on that. I learned that at the time right now, I thought I was ready for a credit card, but after that class, like, my mindset completely changed. Like, I'm not ready for a card. And yeah, just knowing that to have a card, you need to be financially stable. Like, that's not where I'm at right now. And I don't think I'm going to be close, like, not at the moment, but maybe down the line, I'll be open to a card, but just not right now.
You're a wonder.
Baby, if you can't pay it off at the end of the month, don't get it.
All right, Missy, you got final words?
Physically and financially alive and free is what we want each of you to be. It's worth it to listen and apply. It will make a positive difference for the rest of your life. That's all I got to say.
Asking you to consider all of this. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I think, well, look, and the folks out there, you want to know more, you know where to come. StayAliveandFree.org. StayAliveandFree.org. You want Miss Demetra, you want Don, you want Darrell to come teach you this stuff? Hey, get in touch with us. All we're doing is we want you to be a financially alive and free too. All right. Thank you, everybody, so much for spending this time with us.
Thanks, Don. Thanks, Demetra. Thanks, Mr.
Thank you.
Don, it's so good to see you.
And Tarisha.
Tarisha, great to see you. Thank you.
Awesome.
I know who to call. See, it's a nice thing about this, Don.
Fantastic.
Anything we need, we can call on our own graduates, right? And
That's right. That's right. They're teaching.
We got doctors, we got it all.
That's fantastic.
All right.
Great seeing you all.
Good night.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to Street Soldiers Radio. This episode was sponsored by Comerica Bank, who wants you to understand the importance of money management and financial independence. Financial education is a critical component to helping our economy and communities thrive.